Hello, what's up out there, America? Welcome to yet one more episode of Wheel Bite, Season 2, Episode 5. This week we are discussing Thrasher's King of the Road, how it has shifted for cable television, and it kind of continues our discussion last week that we had with Polly Harper about skateboarding in the mainstream. It sort of plays into that same idea with skateboarding being taken in by a larger audience and a more average audience, and how King of the Road is pushing skateboarding both with skaters and with the average viewer. Mind you, this episode was recorded over the summer. King of the Road was still very much going on, and at the time, both of us were putting our money down on Real winning the grand prize there, but I was pretty shocked to see that Element ended up taking that check home. Also, we discuss a little bit about the shoes and board sponsor debate. This was actually the episode that spawned us to have this conversation, so we don't quite allude to it, but we do touch upon it. Not much to report on this week, but want to give a shout out to Tyshawn Jones. Congrats on being 2018's Skater of the Year. Speaking of King of the Road, my vote was on Evan Smith. Sort of feel like this was supposed to be his year, but there's always next year, I guess, Evan. But the way you're progressing, I don't think there will be any shortage of footage coming from you anytime soon. So let's just dive right in. Here it is, Episode 5, Season 2. King of the Road.
Welcome to San Francisco. Don't skate here.
I feel like it's dangling by a fucking strain of bone marrow.
East Coast powerhouse.
From New York, I stab you in the Western Fork.
Carter, it is fucking Friday the fucking 10th.
Dude, I'll give you $100 and I'll take out the Benihana and slide that 75-foot handrail.
I especially like the flip of the board.
Hello. Welcome to another episode, Season 2 of Wheel Bite. Coming to you live from San Francisco, California. I am host one of two, Ted Theodore Mater. And with me, as always, is my man,
Jay Green here.
Jay Green here. Yeah,
Sorry,
what the fuck was that?
The warm-up got to my voice.
Yeah, dude, Jesus.
Our pre-recording session. I'm parched.
Welcome to
The
another
show can't afford water.
Today we're bringing up a topic to the table that has definitely been on our minds all summer, because now it's become part of our regularly scheduled programming in this lifetime, and that is Thrasher's King of the Road. It has expanded far and beyond what it was in its earlier formative years and become a magnum giant that is on cable television, going into the homes of many mild-mannered Americans. And I mean, I don't really know how far Viceland's reach is, but for all we know, it could be going even further than the United States.
It could be, now that I think about it, with like King of the Road and stuff, they could be like the next MTV, but like way better, obviously.
You mean Viceland?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They totally could. I mean, they are a unique analysis of youth culture. On MTV.
Well, they're super accurate.
Well,
like,
they focused
do it well.
on music. That was their thing. They focused on music. But as time went on, MTV's scope got a lot wider to the point now where M doesn't stand for music.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into that.
I made that like connection immediately because I thought of Jackass. Like, me and you have talked prior to even really having this idea of doing a King of the Road episode. Me and you have talked about how King of the Road is very similar, at least how it is now, like what you guys are seeing on TV. We'll get to the beginning and older stuff later, but it's basically like kind of like the new Jackass, sort of.
I mean, it fits so many of those same motifs. You have the fucking like freaking out of the public. You have the performing outlandish stunts that go beyond skateboarding. Like, Jackass was very much rooted in skateboarding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can remember correctly, there were skits that had like Daewon's song in them. But
just Bam being involved.
Of course, Bam's involvement and then like pulling some of his friends into the mix made it more skate-centered. And the fact that it came from a skateboarding magazine, much like King of the Road did. But the whole thing with Jackass was it was never advertised as a skateboarding thing.
No,
it was more of this weird sort of subculture of people, and they were just going out and partaking in some crazy activities that would get a reaction or a laugh or whatever.
You know, they haven't completely killed it at all. Like, there's still a lot of really dope skating going on, but there is more. It's more antic-y.
Oh yeah,
like it's a little more shenanigan focused.
But we haven't even gotten into our warm up.
I know. Sorry. Yeah.
No. You hit a big nail right there.
Sorry,
with the fucking Viceland.
I kind of brought it up early, but I know we always talk about that though. Like, or we've talked about it before, like Jackass and.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd still, at some point, would love to do a whole episode about Big Brother and Jackass and that cultural evolution, but today is not that day. King of the Road is today, and we thought it would be fun for our like little icebreaker intro thing to do what our ideal mystery guest would be, like who it would be, and. When we were picking them out, like, obviously I had some, like, funny ideas. Because I like when they pull, like, random people from skating's past. Like, I was stoked the first season that, you know, Heath Kirchart was one, even though Heath didn't really do shit.
Bugged out.
Yeah, he just
That's worth talking about.
He looked bummed the whole time.
He was super freaked out. You could tell he, like, immediately regretted it. And he didn't do, like, anything.
No, I don't remember anything. I mean, Birdhouse still won it, but I don't remember Heath doing anything.
I guess it was just for who he is in skateboarding. It was good for, like...
Right.
It was, I'm not, like, laughing at him, but it was kind of like... Oh, yeah, I guess that's kind of what I expect. Like, I'm not surprised, I should say, that he, like, kind of did that.
Oh, no. That seems like his typical modus operandi. You know, he's just kind of like, I'm here. But I also remember, too, when they had, like, Peter Smolik as a guest, and I remember being like, that's tight, like, Smolik coming out the woodwork to fucking be on the show. But ideally, like, you know, I wanted to name some random pro of yesteryears as my pick, but then I thought about it.
I'm sure you're going to go deep.
Well, I could have gone deep, but honestly, like... You told me, like, it's got to be someone who can hang that's well-rounded. Dude, how awesome would it be if your mystery guest was fucking the Gons?
Like, oh, man.
Like, you know the Gons could pull some weird shit out of his ass, and it would be super strange, and he'd do all, like, the weird tasks that, like... Not even, like, the weird naked ones. He'd do weird tricks that everyone would be like, who the fuck is going to try that? The Gons probably will. He's a fucking creative genius. If it weren't for his, like, age, which clearly, in the grand scheme of things, means absolutely nothing, you know, he would still be that guy, like, innovating on some whole other shit.
Just off the fact that he's the Gons, like, he's going to be such a good addition to the van.
Oh, yeah.
You know? That's not who I thought you were going to choose. We obviously didn't tell each other before this. Man, you really kind of threw me there. I actually really thought you were going to say who I was thinking. And my mystery guest would be, I was thinking of someone that I would, like, get along with. I could, like, smoke blunts with. And, like, also completely add and, like, rip. And I came with Tom Penny.
Oh, man. He would be a good one, too. I mean...
He's actually, you know, that's like my version of you saying the Gons, basically.
I mean, Tom Penny was on that tip, too, where he wasn't, like, the eccentric skater that the Gonz is like, because the Gonz does shit we look at and we're like, who would ever think to do that besides him? But Tom Penny would be the type of dude that would get like gnarly big things done quick. Like frontside flip this 15 stair, and he'd be like, "Oh, okay, I'm Tom Penny.
Right.
I just need a bottle of red wine, and I'll make it fucking happen."
Exactly. He'd be chilled out in the van, smoking spliffs, and he can skate tranny and street. So
yeah,
I don't know.
All-terrain ripper.
And who doesn't want like a fucking legend like that just to like stoke everyone out?
Oh yeah, I mean he'd be the kind of dude who just him being in the van and like at the spots with everyone, he would be creating that energy around him just because he's fucking Tom Penny.
I'm glad that we both went like more person than not. Obviously, the Gonz and Tom Penny are two of the greats, but we went with more like personality probably than, because we both could have been like, I want Shane O'Neill.
Yeah, oh yeah, I want Shane O'Neill to do everything.
Shane O'Neill, right?
Everything.
I want Chris Cole, who fucking apparently scored more points one season, one go around than a whole team. He scored more points himself in the book than a whole team, which is believable because he's Chris Cole, but it's pretty fucked up.
I mean, that is the height of Chris Cole
mixed
too,
with
like,
Jamie Thomas, like Jamie pushing Chris to.
I was gonna say they were always pretty good at pushing each other. I mean, when we look back at early King of the Road, you know, Zero was the team who fucking won it all the time, which kind of says something about the teams that King of the Road, I mean, they go for. Obviously, at this point, I think it's safe to say the vast majority of professional skate companies have been on King of the Road at some point. Although the only two that, like, I'd have to look into it, but I don't ever remember seeing, like, Black Label. Were they ever on the...
No, I don't think so.
Never seen Zoo York on there either.
Yeah, but those are both kind of like... I really can't put it... I don't know if I can explain it properly, but... Like, they're mainstream companies, but Zoo York has always kind of done...
Yeah, they're kind of more
they've kind of...
low-key.
You know what? I'd say those companies are kind of to the side a little bit. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
No, it does. Like, you...
Like, it's not fucking Girl and Chocolate and Zero, and they're household names, but... And Zoo York's also, like... Isn't they like crazy corporately owned now, right?
I mean, but so is Element.
Yeah, but Zoo York's different. Zoo York's a little different.
No, I guess in terms of how their business is run and like what their goals as a company
like
are.
having Zoo York and like Kmart and Walmart and shit.
Yes.
And having a Zoo York team writer piss in their mouth on TV might not be the greatest look for that
but
corporation.
then what does that say about someone like Black Label? You know, But the point is, we're getting off topic at this point. The whole thing I wanted to bring up was that King of the Road kind of has a vibe of what they want their teams to kind of represent within skateboarding. They want the biggest people who are able to do the biggest shit. Like, that's not a question.
I also think that they like... I don't want to keep relating it to the TV stuff because there's been more at this point not on TV.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But I think that you can tell from the beginning they like the same teams. They like to have people who understand it, I think, a little bit. So, like, you know, Jamie Thomas's and people like that, your Girl Chocolate,
Birdhouse,
Real, Anti-Hero, Birdhouse, all those teams, Element, have done it. It's actually kind of those teams have just been kind of swapped, and you throw Toy Machine in there, and like
now Foundation
and Enjoy, and it's really, I mean, that's a lot of teams we just named, but they kind of just swap them.
They are the bulk of what we know as commercialized skateboarding. Like, you know, all those are the teams that are on the top of the food chain. But I also wonder, too, I mean, we saw in that one documentary before it came to cable that he was making the call, but I wonder how much say Mike Burnett really does have every year in picking the teams, because ultimately King of the Road is his brainchild. If there's anything in skateboarding that he will be remembered for, and I mean, he's a great photographer. I don't want to take away from that. He is a fantastic photographer. But he brought the King of the Road idea to the mag, and it has forever changed the public view of Thrasher. Like, Thrasher was already enormous, don't get me wrong.
Sure, totally.
But now Thrasher is on cable, and people who have no interest in skateboarding have an idea of what they are because of that.
It's all become really ironic. Thrasher leading the ship of skateboarding on TV. Thankfully, it is Thrasher, you know?
I know, it could have gone a lot worse.
But it is still ironic. I'm glad, now saying it out loud, I'm glad that they're the ones doing it and executing it. Tony Vitello and Burnett and Phelps and crew and the photographers that they work with and stuff like that, the videographers. But it's ironic. It is ironic that Thrasher, even just the name Thrasher, is so aggressive. Like, they've always been looked at. They use the fucking pentagram for a bunch of their graphics. They're like big, bad, hard, mean punk skateboard brand for so long.
And I mean, let's not forget too, though, that skateboarding was on TV before that. You know, you had the X Games and stuff on ESPN, but again, competition.
Not
but then
like
meanwhile,
this, though.
you also had stuff like the Fuel TV network, which was like all these weird shows highlighting action sports in like a very
Blue Torch.
kind of like
what
a
do you know
very
about Blue Torch?
strange way. I vaguely remember
Blue Torch is one of the ones that they would play, and it was like extreme sports. It'd be like,
oh yeah, it was like a variety show.
it was like
almost,
surfing, motocross, skating, BMX, like
they'd always play some
rollerblading.
crazy lame metal bands.
Yeah, the worst like montage music ever.
Yeah, I feel like Fuel TV never got it right, and MTV tried too hard to exploit it. But because Vice is so, like, has their fingers on the pulse of the youth, and Thrasher truly understands skateboarding on a very different level.
Well, Thrasher had the product already.
Well, and the name, obviously.
Well, no, they had they had King of the Road going already.
Oh,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? So, like, Vice picked it up later on. You know what I mean? So they already had their thing. So it was, like, kind of more like a marriage type of thing where, like, they picked it up from the webisodes. Or
King
they
of the
picked it
Road.
up to the webisodes, and then the webisodes turned into the TV.
Yeah, and initially, King of the Road was just a thing in the magazine, and you could send away for like a DVD.
It was like a DVD that wasn't even that long, I don't think. I saw a few, and they clearly were not as detailed as what we're watching now or the webisodes.
Yeah, I mean, and the webisodes, mind you, weren't even necessarily super detailed. I used to watch it at like a bar. There would be a bar I would go to in the Richmond, and every now and then they'd throw like random King of the Road shit on the TV if it was a slow night. And most of that shit was, you know, they'd show what the objective was, how many points it was. They'd show maybe like a couple tries that were crazy or like where someone fell really hard, and then they'd show the make and move on. It was all so like quick paced, you know, the snap of your fingers that you're on to the next thing. And that's kind of how they broadcasted it for a long time, because they could only fit so much into those webisodes and keep people's attention for so long.
When it started, I think the first few years, it was like they did a mag on it, or like an issue or an edition. So every year it was like King of the Road edition, that month of Thrasher magazine. And then they would go through, they would have a whole section of like random like photos, you know, like naked dude jumping off a van or whatever. I don't know. It's completely, it's kept its roots, but it's also, I don't know. You can tell that they're like kind of to the point of inviting the same teams back. Mm-hmm. They're essentially character building. Like they have all these like returning characters, Mike Sinclair, Evan Smith, Nyjah, like all these people have been, you know, through it, and it's definitely a TV show.
I mean, it was made to be on cable. Even the way they formatted these new episodes, it's very much based in the same realm that reality television shows are made in. The way they interview everyone and get their opinion, the way they really build up the drama of someone trying this trick over and over and over. They're really going all out to put story into each episode rather than just show you them completing the challenge and getting the points and you're on to the next thing as soon as like it's happened.
I don't hate it.
No, not at all. I think it's awesome. Like, I'm stoked that there's actually a show like this that comes on once a week during the summer that I'm genuinely hyped to watch. Because not only do I get to see a bunch of skaters and a culture that I love being broadcasted to the world, and there's so many different things about it that I appreciate it. Like, I appreciate the fact that they were skating all these spots down the street from where I live. Shout out to right by my house. They were skating right down from where I live, and that shit's being broadcasted on TV. These are spots I pass every day of my fucking life, and that's so cool to me.
Well, you happen to live in a skateboard mecca.
But, you know, other people get to say that too, like people in Washington and all the other, like, states they end up driving through. People in Hawaii, I guess, after last season. But my whole thing...
Yeah, how far east have they gone?
I mean, in some of the older ones, I remember...
They were in, like, the Midwest?
They did the Midwest, or they did, like, fucking, like, Philadelphia to Florida.
Did they? No.
I remember there was one year where they were just trucking down the East Coast, and that was the year... I know Element was on it, and one of them, I want to say it was Nyjah, did some, like, crazy huge rail. Like, I think they even showed it...
Dreadlock
when they were introing
Nyjah?
him. No, he was posh model boy Nyjah at this point for sure.
That bail. No, I know the bail you're talking about.
But that was on the East Coast somewhere. Like, and Flip was on the show that year too, and they were in Boston because they were at Orchard Skate Shop at one point. Like, I do remember all that stuff. But honestly, yeah, they've kept most of the cable seasons on the western side of the country, because even last year they started in New Mexico and just sort of like worked their way west. I mean, I want them to go back to further and farther places at some point, I hope, but that's the whole thing, you know. Jamie Thomas and the Zero team, they say one of the reasons they were able to win it so many times is because Jamie has notebooks of spots and like has people to call in every city from being like such a road dog over the years. But now I feel too a lot of the spots are just sort of handed to them. Like, obviously they go out and find some stuff, and they do go to the local parks and try
they're with a fucking film crew now.
But yeah, like, I honestly wonder if one of the reasons why they get sent to some of these spots is because they need permits or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Obviously, that's not always the case.
No, that's a really good point, though, is that how much harder it was back then. Just to, like, they were kind of on their own and didn't have necessarily... Like, they had the book, and then I'm sure they had their map and probably, like, you know, their points or whatever, meetup points. But... yeah, that's totally a good point that now they're just like each team has their own film crew, if not like a whole production crew and everything.
And granted, that film and production crew is made up of some of skateboarding's finest videographers and photographers.
No, I'm saying outside of that.
Oh.
Like, I'm talking about the production crew for Viceland.
Oh, you're talking about like the producers
who are
plan
filming the show,
and run
yeah.
the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can actually hear they're doing this thing this season where like they'll caption what like a producer's like asking one of the skaters or people on the show.
Well, do we know if that's a producer or do we know if that's just someone on the team, like a manager?
I mean, I guess it could be anyone, but
Just
I don't
someone
know
that
why it's someone that's not on camera.
Right. And that is a common technique for such things. But you're right. I mean, they're pumping all this money into it. It would be shitty if they wasted a whole day like going to a spot and getting kicked out.
It's definitely changing, like we said, into way more of a TV show. I would love to be in or hear those meetings
Or they're planning that shit out.
where they're trying to like a King of the Road marketing meeting.
Oh, yeah.
That would be amazing to be a fly on that wall.
And you know, one of the things, too, that they're trying to do is keep it a little safer for television.
Yeah.
And I don't mean safe in, like, we can't show anything bad, because obviously they're showing some pretty gnarly stuff. But, I mean, we were talking before we were recording tonight about how there's way less makeouts this season. And that was one of the big things in those web series, like seeing like dirtbag Clint Walker fucking making out with a ton of chicks, or fucking...
Well, that was just a couple seasons ago.
I mean, he was doing it that first season on cable, but he was also one of the ones who did it when it was a web series, and that's why they had him doing it in that first season, because
He's
they
the
wanted
makeout
him.
guy.
Yeah.
He's a
they knew
character.
he could do it. And then also, like... they're still promoting tons of naked stuff. Let's get real.
Yeah.
It's still got some dirtbag tendencies.
There's actually a lot. I feel like a lot more like piss and shit stuff.
Yeah, they're not afraid to really embellish on that anymore. And again, weird considering it's on cable, but
I just want to take the time. I was talking to my homie about this at a barbecue, and I want to just take this second to recognize and call out that every time on King of the Road that there's a drink your own piss challenge or something of that sort, the skaters always piss out the most raunchy brown piss ever, and they drink that right away. These guys don't know that if you drink like 3 cups of water and pee a few times, your pee basically becomes water. They're always drinking the most foul, raunchy brown
because they're always
skater
drinking
piss.
beer in the van, probably.
I'm sure. Oh, they're not living any sort of hydrated, healthy life. But I just always thought about like, oh, if I had to do that, like that's what I would do. Mm-hmm. Side note, we can done with that.
Maybe your day will come.
God, I don't know. I might have jinxed myself.
And one thing we should definitely add about it coming to cable, I mean, how nice is it to see Andy Roy truly getting his spotlight after all these years? I mean, when he was a skater in the 90s, he had a reputation and he was a character, but I don't think anyone saw him getting to where he is right now.
What a trip, huh? What a ride. What a wild ride he's had in skateboarding.
Yeah, and I'm happy that he's able to like have this outlet now, and
he's the right person for it, honestly. Like, love him or hate him, he plays his hype man role. And it's not even playing the role. Like, that's Andy Roy. If you've ever seen him in real life, if you've ever had the pleasure, or, you know, if you know anything about him, like, he's not playing that role.
No, that's him.
But he's perfect for that role, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. That's Andy Roy to a T.
The perfect hype man to, like, it's such a great dynamic of Burnett and Andy Roy. Burnett's just like, all right, kind of like the facilitator and the brains behind it, and Andy is like the face of Thrasher, screaming, hyping everyone up.
He's got that energy that you want, while Burnett's just like, I'm going to be
properly
smart and tactical,
properly explaining everything, and Andy's just in the background, just rabid.
Yeah, like yeah. Oh yeah, it's great that he is the face of that show. Burnett's the brain, Andy's the face. And I guess at the grand scheme of it all, Jake Phelps is the heart.
Sure. Anything to do with Thrasher.
Well, Jake Phelps, I mean, he still kind of has the like, I can't remember what it's called exactly, the like Phelps approval challenge, basically, like where he picks the thing someone does that's the gnarliest thing.
Oh,
like,
yeah, Phelper's Choice or
Phelper's
whatever.
Choice, yeah.
Something like that.
Which is smart because in skateboarding, Phelps approval is honestly the thing you probably want.
So what do you think now the public's... What's the public going to take from this? Because I've heard skaters have, like, mixed feelings. Like, I have a homie who's like, I don't know, like, I'm kind of like fuck King of the Road. It's on TV and it's like corny and the skating is just like very guided and like, you know, and I wonder what is the public taking from it? Is it helping skateboarding? Is it hurting skateboarding? I can imagine maybe a middle-aged woman who comes across an episode of King of the Road,
like her kids watching it,
maybe
or
something like that, and she's just like doesn't know maybe much about skateboarding or the culture, and she's just immediately associating skateboarding with drinking your own piss and like
chugging beers and
like skating naked and like staying up all night, all day, and all night.
I mean, I don't want to bring this back to Jackass,
or does
but
it
I'm
help
going
it?
to for a second because
they were loved.
Oh, I know they were, but not by everybody, and certainly when that show came out, not by my parents. You know, my parents were probably not stoked on Jackass, although I don't even think, honestly, I mean, my parents were strict when I was 11 years old, so I had a fucking, like, time where I had to be in my room, TV was off, and it was like 9 o'clock on a fucking school night. By the time Jackass would air, I was in bed, probably. But they were not letting me watch that shit, and I'm pretty sure I only caught it.
Funny to me that you weren't allowed to watch Jackass.
I mean, it's not like they knew what it was.
Even when you were in like high school,
Oh, well,
you
when
got
I was
older.
in high school, it was over. Like, I'd already been corrupted enough by that point. And I remember actually in 9th grade, my mom dropping me off at the movie theater, knowing that I was going to go into a rated R movie and see the first Jackass movie. But had I been at home watching TV and she came in and saw like Chris Pontius skating naked down the San Diego boardwalk, oh, she'd have fucking lost it. She'd been like, what the fuck are you watching? Then never again in my house. It was bad enough when she walked in during Mallrats when the fucking topless fortune teller has the third nipple. And like, she walked in on that once, and at that point I was about to be in high school. She had lost me now. I was already corrupt as fuck. But dude, she saw that and was just like, wow, I can't believe I let you buy this movie.
You're the funniest. I'm just picturing your high school life as like a mix of like Dawson's Creek and like American Pie, just like so like
I wish my high school life was that cliched because I'd have probably had a lot more sex, but
I could just
it wasn't, and I didn't.
I can I can just picture your mom walking in and like the timing of that. It's like, how does that happen? Like his parents, that's like so cliche.
It did happen a lot, and I'm sure it happens to kids watching King of the Road nowadays. The question is, do parents care as much because there's far less taboos when it comes to that shit anymore. Not only that, we have a fucking president who, it's common knowledge, was possibly urinated on by Russian hookers. So,
well, there goes to the point of their clear attempt at character building. So I say, does it help or hurt the face of skateboarding? And there's one side of the nasty, ridiculous, wild shenanigans they're doing, and then there's the other side of sweet and funny and likable Mike Sinclair.
Or like, him and Nick Merlino are real pals, like on the road together.
Like, oh, well, I really like that. That's my mom voice right there. I really like that, the guy who's the manager, he's really sweet.
Exactly, and I think there is that side of it, and I think, honestly, by today's standards, if a kid is watching King of the Road, chances are it's going to probably inspire them to pick up a skateboard, and if they go and pick up a skateboard, that is a good thing, and a parent is probably going to be thrilled that their kid is taking interest in anything that's not a fucking video game system. So I'm sure it does win some people over in the general public, but I'm also sure at the same time it freaks out parents. But then again, I don't know. I mean, you're from the city. Growing up where I grew up, skateboarding freaked out my parents at a young age. Like, when I was substantially younger and I wanted to go to the skate park or the skate shop, and like people at the skate shop where I'm from weren't always nice and like kind of looked down on anyone who didn't know what they were talking about, which definitely was my mom. And I'm going in to buy my first pair of skate shoes, and she's like asking all these dumb questions.
Mom, shut up.
Exactly. Mom, shut up. I'm going to buy these Circas.
Yeah, the Mark Appleyards.
Nah, they were Adrian Lopez's.
I had the Appleyards.
I definitely hope that it brings that kind of attention to skateboarding.
It's going to get both. I mean, it's going to get both, but like what are people siding with more, I'd actually probably say that it's more on the side of turning skateboarding more likable and digestible.
It definitely
Believe
is.
it or not, with all the nasty shit that goes on in the show, believe it or not, I think it may kind of just warm up to people.
Well, one of my friends back home who's super into it, we did not grow up skating together. He never was like in that group of friends. I knew him from going to school together and playing in the school band and growing up down the street. We never had skateboarding in common, but he fucking loves King of the Road. And like, I remember after the first season was on cable, like maybe halfway through, he like hits me up one day. He's like, "Hey man, have you heard of this show called King of the Road?"
Well,
And I'm like, "Of course I have. Like, come on, man, what do you take me for?" But for him, he didn't know what the fuck it was, and he watches every season now, and he'll hit me up every now and then and ask me questions about like this person or that person, or like if this trick has ever been done before. And that is something I think is fascinating that's being broadcasted to the masses. The skating that is coming out of this show, without a doubt, is groundbreaking all the time. Like, the fact that Foundation on this most recent season went to that Cardiel rail that like only one or two people have ever done, and Cardiel didn't even do it.
Yeah.
He just tried it enough times and fucked himself up over and over and over again, to the point where like his name is unanimous with that rail. But they went and tried a trick, and like the fact too that someone was even trying something else on it, that's like a little nugget of skate progression right there. And
it's cool that
it was on cable. Everyone saw it.
That's Thrasher. Like, that's Thrasher's touch on it. Now maybe someone, your homie, or we've said this on, I feel like, a few other episodes. Definitely the Epically Latered episode, of like our friends hitting us up and being like, "Hey, have you heard of Epically Latered? You heard of King of the Road?" And it's just being digested by a whole other crowd. And goddamn, Viceland did a fucking good job, and Thrasher has done a good job with all of that, and it's completely spread, I would say, in the right way that they want it to within skating.
Well, I want to go back more to what I was saying about how it's like progressing skating forward in that sense. They're doing things on that show that they put it in the book because they're like, haha, this is impossible. No one's ever going to do it. And then people fucking do it.
I've definitely seen some of the most mind-blowing shit.
Well, one of my favorite
King of the Road.
One of my favorite things last year was when
that I've seen ever.
I don't even remember who the guy on Creature was that did it, but like they were doing the longest rail. They go to that rail and the dude 50-50s it, and they're like, "Ha, we got that so fast, no one's gonna beat that." And then they put a bike lock on it too to fucking make sure no one else could hit it. But then Enjoy shows up, they cut the bike lock, and I think it's Jackson Pills. It's either him or Ben Ramers, but someone fucking feebles the fucking rail, and it's like, It's the same idea from back in the day where Rob Dyrdek and Chris Markovich were on the same session at Carlsbad, and Dyrdek switch-ollied Carlsbad, got a photo, thought it was going to be the cover. And then that same afternoon, Markovich kick-flipped it and fucking pulled the rug out from under him.
We've kind of touched on this in a different light, in different context, but there's always been a definite, undeniable like air of competition in skating. And you can call it, you don't have to call it competition. You can call it like, I like to skate with this person because he fucking rips and he pushes me, that type of thing. Or, you know, or you can call it competition as well. You just can't deny that, I guess, that there's going to be some sort of back and forth, I guess. And Thrasher has put it in a completely different context where it definitely is a competition. Like, they get a prize, they're accumulating points, they're trying specific goals. I would say it's pushing skateboarding. Like I said, some of the gnarliest stuff I've ever seen has happened on King of the Road. The kickflip onto another board down a set of stairs.
I mean, that's something that I mean has like progressed skating even further. Like, you would have never thought that was possible a few years ago. And here we are now. It's like a common thing on King of the Road where they're like, what can we try this year to get on a second skateboard? Or even just the fact, too, that like they're trying these kinked rails because they're like, oh, like get a rail that has over 4 kinks or something, and someone does it. Like, they keep picking things that they don't think anyone is going to get, and then someone gets it. We talked about this on last season where we talked about like our competitions, like the X Games and stuff. And King of the Road, it is a competition. It's more a competition the way American Idol is a competition, in the sense that you build up all this shit. King of the Road's case, like 11 or 12 days of fucking skating. But I mean, it's that same build up. It's a competition that lasts several days, and it's really making you get a run for your money.
It's like kind of like a mind fuck for all the skaters in the van, because these skaters are used to being in a van and used to like being road warriors and hopping out at random spots and shit like that. But it's different in the sense where if you're on a trip and you've been trying a trick for 2 or 3 hours just to get a clip or a photo, you can leave. You can bounce and you can be like, okay, I'll come back, or I'm over it, fuck it. In this case, no. You have nowhere to go except for your next destination, and you're trying to get these fucking points. Not only has it pushed skateboarding, trick-wise and innovation, but it's pushed skateboarding in that sense to where skaters, believe it or not, like, they put their bodies and minds through a lot, but this is taking it to a whole new level because it's a 12-day competition or something. 12 days, right? Like, that's the point of why they're out there. They can't necessarily wash their hands clean after this. They're like, no, you're doing this, and like, we need the points.
But also because it's so personal between people in the van and the other 3 vans, or I'm sorry, between people in the van and between the people in one van versus another van, the rivalry gets super intense. You know, it's not like the Yankees and Red Sox are rivals because it's like a long line of tradition and haha, fuck Boston, fuck New York, or same thing with San Francisco and LA on the baseball
Who
tip.
knows, man? In like 15 years, the Birdhouse chocolate rivalry is gonna be like just as thick as the Giants Dodgers.
That would be ridiculous, but I feel like with skateboarding, it's never about a team hating another team. It's always something personal.
It's always individual.
You know, it's like this person does not vibe with this person. And therefore, if they're all at spots together where they have to kind of be together, you know.
That's good for the public to see also, that not all skaters are the same.
Oh,
like
totally.
other skaters can fucking hate skaters and be completely different from each other.
They all have their own set of characteristics that make them unique. And that's one of the things I think about King of the Road in general is how it's made like stars and characters out of people. Like we talked about Mike Sinclair. I like that in the newer episodes they're bringing people like Joe Brook and fucking Rhino and like all these Thrasher staff members into the mix, even like Beagle last season. But then look at some of the
Beagle totally deserves to be a TV character though.
Oh, definitely. He like I knew as soon as Death Wish was going to be on that season that Beagle would be a highlight of the trip. But look back at some of the old like the web series and how like they really shown on like how Nyjah is this fucking ripper and not just a contest fucking whore, and how Jaws is like willing to do the craziest fucking shit, or how Chris Cole is as amazing as we all think he is all the time. You know, that's what they were able to show throughout all these different seasons of King of the Road. You know, they really allowed skaters' abilities to shine through that, like, because the video part is one thing, you know. What's it like when there's money on the line and time on the clock? And I think this is obviously different from your X Games or your Do Tours, whatever, like, because your run is not a minute or something, but there is still a clock running.
How do you feel about the Jamie Thomas factor? Maybe a little background first. Jamie Thomas in Zero won King of the Road 2004, 2005, and 2006. And like you said earlier, he came extremely prepared. He had spot lists. If you know anything about Jamie Thomas, he's a perfectionist.
And he's a hard fucking worker.
He's a hard worker, and he's also been known to kind of be a little bit of a dick and push his skaters and be maybe a little too, I say he's a dick because of a few things. He definitely has a reputation of like, that's not good enough.
Well, we both
do that
sitting
better
here in this room know that Jamie Thomas is my favorite skater of all time.
I know, and I also love to push your buttons on the topic.
But
so the story goes is one of the team riders did a trick or did some kind of fuckery. I think it was like a hang 10 or standing whatever on the board, flying down a set of stairs, and the guy did it. And Jamie said, "I want to film it better. Do it again." And the guy does it again, or attempts to, and ends up blowing his fucking meniscus out. That's fucked up. That's super fucked up. That's fucked up in any case, whether it's in King of the Road or just a session that Jamie Thomas is on. That's like a fierce fucking competitive spirit.
Yeah, but I mean, look at Birdhouse throughout the years too. I mean,
they're definitely the two main... they're the two main
Jaws
contenders.
is less in your face than Jamie Thomas is about that stuff.
He is, but he's super like go-getter when he's in the competition.
Oh, absolutely.
He wants to do any and everything.
But what do I think about Jamie Thomas? If you're on,
I want your actual opinion on.
Well, I feel like if you're on his team, you've obviously stuck it out quite a bit and know what to kind of expect. Like, this is what he expects out of people.
Specifically with the stair thing.
Specifically with that, I think that's fucked up. It's different now.
It was completely avoidable. Like, he had done it already.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not for the new Zero video, it's for King of the Road. Right. So I think Jamie should have just let it go. But now that's why on cable they have the best fucking filmers from the Thrasher staff or from the team's staff to make sure that everything is captured perfectly.
There's one staff filmer and one photographer back in the day for the original first like handful of King of the Road.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah, they were running on a skeleton crew. But
and they have multiple angles of everything now.
Yeah, and they don't just have like rando filmers, like Rick Cossack films King of the Road every year. Or fucking I mean, just having Beagle and fucking, what's the guy on Foundation? Don Luong and all those people who film those guys all day, every day, is a huge deal because you have the filmer that you trust with your team 24/7. Now, granted, Jamie probably is a guy who is filming most of the Zero videos because that's kind of always been how he does. However, again, I think that considering at this point, too, King of the Road was still kind of in his infancy and it wasn't relying on these crazy angles, then Jamie should have just been like, yeah, we got it. Let's get the fuck out of here and get on the road.
There's another good example that a lot of people do know about because it was televised, and the Jamie Thomas stuff was like a while ago. And it's a different it's a different look at competitive spirit, which is what happened between Raven and Clint.
Well, that's what I was thinking of when I thought about rivalries. Clint Walker.
Clint Walker, yeah.
That's what I was thinking about with rivalries before.
Like, that was gnarly. Like, that was super gnarly what happened.
Oh, yeah. And they were, like, Raven was ready to go to fucking war for that shit. And I don't blame him, because what Clint Walker did was fucked up. And I also technically felt like the Birdhouse team at that point in the contest was cheating. Like, they were in L.A., they were driving around in 2 cars, because they're like, oh, we're going to stop at this person's house and get a car. And that's not how it's supposed to be. Like, you're supposed to all be in the van together.
And they had a target
shit
on their back because they had won a bunch already, too.
Oh, of course. And they won again. It didn't stop them whatsoever from winning.
They were super jockey about it, though.
But then so was Creature, and that's where I felt last season is where it kind of started to shift a little from that jockeyer side of things, because here you had Deathwish and Enjoy, 2 teams where, like, they were just trying to have a good time and do some groundbreaking shit. Like, Deathwish did not win, but Jamie Foy was winning everyone's heart in America.
And one skater of the year.
And one skater of the year. And, like, even Enjoy, like, they won first place, and they were the nice guys. They never really wanted to fuck anyone's day up. They just wanted to get points. That season, too, had a number of things that I appreciated, and one of them, too, was the all-female mystery guests.
Talk about making, like, the show likable and digestible. They bring on a whole crew, which it was about time. There's a whole roster of ripping girls out there now.
Yeah, and not only that, talking about how certain skaters have become bigger names because of their time on the show. I can't think of people who have done better from that than Nora and Samaria Brevard, because Samaria went pro last year for Enjoy, the team she was on the road with, and she was pretty sure she was sponsorless before that.
And now Nora is like one of the most likable characters in skateboarding.
Yeah, and I think Burnett kind of even talked about that when he introduced her as a mystery guest. And he said, like, what a personality she was and how it was going to kind of shine through on King of the Road. And sure enough, it did. And now, like, she's getting interviews in Rolling Stone because everyone knows who the fuck she is. And I'm sure being on cable helped that cause, as well as, you know, getting a female pro model Adidas shoe. And
I'm going to go ahead and say you're going to see those ladies soon on a season of King of the Road in the next year or two for sure. I don't know. It makes perfect sense. It's all perfect timing, and Viceland is doing a good job capitalizing on it, because skateboarding, it's perfect timing also because skateboarding is just like this fucking crazy ball of fire right now, and it's taking over everything. Yeah, I'm not mad at the way it's being presented necessarily. It is a little wacky, but where do you think it can go?
I mean, that's
or will go? And as far as its life on TV, I feel like this episode was dominated by all the TV talk, which is kind of bullshit. But
I mean, that was the crux of what this was about, though. Like, we wanted to talk about how
it's become. No, for sure.
Yeah, what
for
it's
sure.
turned into. I mean,
I don't think it's changed much.
It's just been drawn out more. Like,
well, since it's been on TV, I don't think it's like, I'm trying to see where it can possibly end up and where they're going to go with it and how it can, maybe it's just like more stuff like that, more stuff that's going to appeal to a more mass crowd, more celebrity, Bam Margera's, Tyler, the Creators, and household names like that maybe involved.
There's that element of it. But here are the two things that I would like to see in terms of how they could change it and progress further. One is terrain. Why are we just sticking to America? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, we noted earlier how it's been mostly on the western side of the country since it's been on cable, but before they had different runs, like where people were going down the East Coast or across the Midwest or whatever. There was other terrain within America, and I'm sure they're going to eventually work their way back to that on the cable show.
I'm shocked that they haven't done.
Yeah, like started in New York and worked their way to Miami. Like, that seems
you
doable
could do
as fuck.
Europe so easily.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I'd love to see Europe. I'd love to see South America.
Yeah.
I'd love to see fucking Asia. Like, why don't we have King of the Road in China? That would be fucking awesome. And then the other thing I'd like to see is not just doing board companies anymore. How awesome would a fucking shoe company King of the Road competition be? Lakai versus Nike versus Converse.
Yeah.
And that's just like spitballing.
I mean, that's the way the shoe industry and like shoe teams have evolved in skateboarding. We know now, it's safe to say that shoe companies now define you more than your board company.
Absolutely. And because of that, I'm waiting for that to be the basis of a King of the Road competition.
Picking from Nike and Adidas rosters.
Oh, absolutely. That's
God.
awesome. And now, on a side note of that, not just shoe company, I'd love to see some underdog companies get a chance. Because, so on this season, one of the things they did was hang out with the Pizza Skateboards crew all day.
Yeah. And the whole challenge was actually about how sick of a flat bar skater Michael Paluzzi is.
Yeah, and that's awesome. So why can't pizza be one of the selections?
Yeah, but then again, back to the point of like trying to make it more of a household thing and people that they recognize maybe already a little bit and feel comfortable with. It totally makes sense. I can see why TV show is not putting these smaller companies involved.
For marketability, totally. But
I agree with you, though.
But I would love to see Pizza or Fancy Lad or Dime or any of those fucking dudes getting their shot. They have the budget, though, to take this shit wherever the fuck they want. And I think now it's just a matter of what is legally allowed to be done, considering we are living in fucked up times where travel and permits and shit aren't necessarily as attainable as they were, say, 5-10 years ago.
Well, they got to go through a hell of a lot more now than the first few seasons when they were like, oh, we're just going to put a few pictures of it in the magazine.
Oh, yeah. But not only that, getting the permits to shoot all that stuff in Europe or South America or whatever is probably a little more difficult, as opposed to, like, if fucking Foundation is going on a road trip to Europe, they ain't getting permits. They're just showing up and hoping for the best. And that might be why. But as Viceland's reach gets further out around the world, then they're probably going to be able to pull more strings. And I hope that they do.
I could actually see it coming like next season, maybe. I think they're at a point where...
Well, they went to Hawaii last year.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be a shocker if, like, they got on a plane to fucking Barcelona.
Or London, something like that. Europe, yeah. Oh, yeah, Barcelona. They could do Spain easy.
Yeah, and I'd be all for that. I'd love to see them expand it. And because Burnett has done such a good job over the years, not just thinking of challenges that will be impossible and then actually get done and then blow our minds, but he's been good about figuring out ways to expand it in ways that it hasn't necessarily been done before because there's more money coming in. And if he keeps up this idea, and I hope that he does, then he shouldn't have any shortage of challenges or destinations for any of this.